Do I think Caleb has to be better than he was last year? Yes, I do. I think he's got to see it. He's got to get it out quicker. He's got to know exactly what he's looking at and get the ball out quicker in a lot of situations as well. But I saw some really good things, not only in college, but last year from Caleb Williams. He's got tremendous talent. I like the individual. The times I've met him and I've talked to him, I like him. I think he's got the right makeup. I like Ben Johnson. I like his scheme. I like the playmaker. Like, everything says this has the potential to be a really, really good fit if we can get Caleb playing at his best.
Kurt, what'd you make of what you saw from the excerpts from the upcoming Seth Wickersham book, especially as related to Caleb and all that story entailed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is I thought it was a great cautionary tale for every team, organization, coach, and player moving forward. Is that, I've tweeted and sent some videos out about it, that I've never seen a coach, take a player outside of, kind of structured time and sit down and teach them how to watch tape. Whether it was me and, a lot of people say, well, you weren't the number one overall pick. 100% true, and that makes sense. But I was also with guys like Eli Manning and Matt Leinart, and I never saw a coach kind of take them aside. And maybe I missed it. Maybe they did. But kind of sit down and break down, how to watch tape and what to look at in each situation and what cut-ups to watch on. I've never seen that happen. And so, my perspective was I don't think coaches do that on a normal basis, because oftentimes they assume that a player, especially a great player, especially a player, of Caleb Williams' status in college, and also a guy that they went through a bunch of meetings with, you sit down with these guys and you go, guys, this guy knows football. This guy knows what he's doing. And so they come in and you kind of just assume, oh, well, he's had great success. He's been around some great coaches. He knows how to prepare, and that's what led to all his success. And so we're going to prepare how we normally do, assuming he's going to do his prep and be successful. And so part of me is like, I don't think it's common for coaches to assume that players don't know when they get to this level, although cautionary tale, right? Maybe we should. Maybe every coach should go in and go, okay, what do you know? Like, do you know how to watch tape? What are you going to do? What's your preparation? But I think sometimes that can be a tough conversation. And then I think the other side as well is that, players come in and they're hoping that, everything they need is laid out in front of them. And when it's not, and if they don't know, it becomes a hard conversation to go to your coach as a number one overall pick or whoever you are and go, hey, coach, I don't really know how to watch film, and what I should be looking at and what my, prep should be. I'm still trying to develop that. Can you help me with that? I think that's a hard conversation as well. So both sides, I think, sometimes will step back and go, well, I don't want to embarrass my number one overall pick by asking him if he knows how to watch tape or taking him through this process. Or if I'm the number one overall pick, I don't want to embarrass myself and go and ask my coaches how to watch tape. And again, this is just off of one comment I saw about, the tape watching thing. And I don't know the full scenario, but I think it's, it's a tough conversation. And so it would just be nice if we went in and said, hey, I'm not worried about, embarrassing anybody. I just want to make sure a guy like Caleb knows everything he needs to know. And if I'm Caleb, I'm not afraid to go in and expose everything that I don't know because I want to be great. So let me ask every single question and let me lay it out there for them. Yeah. But I think those things are rare and they're hard to do. And that's why I say this to me was a cautionary tale that, man, I hope every coach from now on takes their quarterback or whomever it is and says, hey, tell me what you know. Tell me what you need help with. Let me sit down with you and do everything I can possibly do to help you, because I think most coaches are going to be willing to do that. And then you want the players on the other side to be willing to humble themselves and say, you know what? Yes, I had great success in college, but I don't know everything yet. Right. And I don't know what I don't know. So can you help me? Or reach out to, a former player and say, hey, talk me through what you did to learn all the nuances of it, instead of both sides kind of sitting back and going, well, I'm going to wait for them to ask me, or I'm going to wait for them to tell me. And then, it seems like there was the disconnect there in Chicago.
Yeah, Kurt, my first reaction, maybe it was an ignorant reaction on my behalf, is if you're working with Lincoln Riley or you're working with Cliff Kingsbury, for sure that they've sat down and done some of this stuff with you. But maybe, is it fair to say that some quarterbacks in today's game come into the league less prepared and less knowledgeable about all this stuff because so many of the decisions are made on the sideline in between plays, and the quarterback, instead of going into the huddle, looks to his coach, and the coach makes all the decisions from the sideline?
I think that could be a part of it. You know, I did another video a couple days ago where I talk a lot about the pure progression type systems that are taking over football. And it's a big part of what I thought Chicago was doing last year. And what that means for everybody out there is pure progression basically says, here's your play, and no matter what the defense does, you're going to read this the exact same way every time. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. Doesn't matter. So we're seeing more of that take over at the high school level and then the college level. And now it's starting to infiltrate it and take over the pro level. And, you know, the idea behind it is, hey, we can simplify it because we're not really sure what the defense is going to give us, or we're not sure if our quarterback can recognize all the different nuances of the defense. So let's design a play that has the same progression every time. So they just go in and they read it the same way. And as you see that, you know, from a young age all the way up through college and the pros, that to me is another thing that goes, well, why do I need to learn how to watch tape? I mean, why is it that important what a defense is doing? Because you're asking me to do the same thing every single time, is to come back and look at this guy first, and if he's open, throw it to him, and then throw it to the next guy. And so I think, you know, some of that system that's taking over everything with the idea that we can plug and play guys and we can get them in there sooner and they don't have to learn and know as much. And now we can just allow our best player or our best athlete to just get out there and swing the ball around because they don't really have to know what they're seeing. They just have to know what the offense is and then go make plays for us. And that's where I believe it's one of the ways that the pure progression really hurts a quarterback, because he's not looking for those keys. He's not recognizing what the coverage is, so to speak, in a lot of situations. He's coming out and reading to see if his guys are open, as opposed to, will this concept be open against this coverage? Oh, well, let me move on to the next one. It slows down the process. It simplifies the process from a particular standpoint. And that, to me, I think, hurts preparation, because you talk about Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury, and a big part of the offenses they run are very pure progression based as well. So it's not going in and trying to figure out, okay, what's the defense going to do? Do I need to change a play? Or what's the defense going to do? So now my progression may start to the right. Oh, they rolled the corner down. Now my progression starts to the left. It's not nearly as much of that stuff. And I believe it hurts quarterbacks in a lot of different ways. But that could be another reason why, when you talk about quarterbacks not quite being ready or not having seen as much or prepared the same way, why they're not having to prepare the same way that, for instance, I prepared when I played, because we would do full field plays. I don't know, Tom, if you guys did the same thing, but we had full field plays. So if the coverage was this, I would start over to the right. If the coverage was this, I would start to the left. If the coverage was this, I might start down the middle. And it was all based on what I saw pre and post snap, and then the reaction from there. And a lot of offenses are different from that right now.
Kurt Warner joining us, Hall of Famer, Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. As I mentioned, Kurt, when I brought you in, before we hosted this show, I covered the Bears for many years, including your game against the Bears in '99. They have you, a future Hall of Famer. We have Shane Matthews in that game. and that's been my lot in life as a Bears fan, and many of the people who have listened, we've not had that. So, well, my only issue that I have with the stuff that you're bringing up about Caleb looking for outside help, and we could banter about whether you got it or Eli got it. I could say Belichick taught Brady or Alex Smith taught Mahomes along with Andy Reid. To me, the Bears' history is so plagued with failure of drafting number one picks. And Poles told everyone that he realized that. And he came out with a mantra, it's time to break the cycle. Yet, he made the same mistakes that his predecessors made. Just like when John Fox was here and they drafted Trubisky and then they fired him the next year and Nagy had to take over. Just like when Nagy drafted Justin Fields, they fired him the next year. Polls knew this about failed first-round picks with the Bears and still allowed him to be coached by Matt Eberflus, still allowed him to be coached by Shane Waldron, still allowed him to get hit countless times. And I know some of the sacks were on him. I've watched your breakdown. I understand this. But I just think, Kurt, and don't you, that the Bears have to be more careful that they're developing their quarterback the right way because they've never done it.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, again, I think hindsight is 20/20, and it's easy to say all of that. You know, I think
but we said that before, Kurt. We said that before.
No, but what I'm saying is that, coaches, as they go into this, and they've coached and been around pros for a long time, a big part of their job is, yes, to develop players, of course. But we all know that played in the league, like, there wasn't a whole lot of developing that was going on during the season. During the season was so much about game planning, getting ready for the next day, preparing our guys, putting the game plan in, explaining to them what the reads were, and then moving on to the next one and trying to get them ready in 6 days to go play the next opponent that might be different. It wasn't as much, hey, we've got all this extra time as coaches where we can take these guys aside. The other thing that we know is there's not nearly as much time in the offseason where coaches and players can get together as much and do some of this stuff. And so, yes, I hear your point. And again, I would have to hope and think that Chicago, looking back on it, when they hear these comments and all of this stuff, would go, gosh, we should have done it differently. We should have focused more on this. We should have thought more about this. But again, I just think it's a lot of stuff is assumed. Like, if I would take a quarterback into a room and have numerous meetings with him and, watch him on tape and see the stuff and, hey, take me through this read and what you were looking at. Oh, I saw cover two. So, if I did all those meetings and I decided, well, man, this guy, not only is he talented, but, man, he's got all, everything I want for him to be the number one overall pick, I think it's easy to assume that they have a lot of this skill set that we're talking about, where you don't have to necessarily bring them along at a slower pace. And I think that's what a lot of teams are hoping for, is you've got that guy and, all the meetings have, contributed to, your decision to make him the number one overall pick. And then you're going to run and go with it from there and do what you've always done, assuming that he's going to do what he's always done. So, again, I just think it's one of those things. I don't think anybody asked the questions. And because they didn't ask the questions, nobody really knew the deep-rooted answers on both sides. And that, to me, is what hurt this type of situation. But I don't think it's rare for a team. And, again, okay, they haven't done it that way in the past. They haven't been successful in the past, so maybe they should change. We're all creatures of habit. This is how we do things. This is how we've done it. This is how we've had success. This is how we're going to do it moving forward, thinking that's going to lead to more success. And it doesn't always play out like that.
And Kurt, you mentioned this, that like when you hate, when someone calls you a hater, it may just be because you've pointed out some things. So if you have to tell us today what the outlook looks like in your estimation, Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson, what do you think we're going to get?
I mean, I'm optimistic. I think, like everybody else is, that I love a lot of the stuff that Ben does. He runs a lot of more pure progression type stuff, but his pure progression stuff ties into more what I call defender read stuff. And so I like his version of it in a lot of situations better than what I see across the league. So I'm excited because I really like his scheme and the way he sets guys up and the way he can set up some easy plays for Caleb Williams and all these playmakers that they have. Do I think Caleb has to be better than he was last year? Yes, I do. I think he's got to see it. He's got to get it out quicker. He's got to know exactly what he's looking at and get the ball out quicker in a lot of situations as well. But I saw some really good things, not only in college, but last year from Caleb Williams. He's got tremendous talent. I like the individual. The times I've met him and I've talked to him, I like him. I think he's got the right makeup. I like Ben Johnson. I like his scheme. I like the playmaker. Like, everything says this has the potential to be a really, really good fit if we can get Caleb playing at his best and we get the Ben Johnson and we've got the, kind of system and players that we saw in Detroit so they can do the same sorts of things. I think it has the makings of a really, really good marriage. But again, taking a coach from one place to another doesn't automatically mean, oh, that system is going to work just as well and they're going to have just as much success. And same with Caleb, he's going to have to get better, than he was last year for him to make that step.
Kurt, how hard is it for a player who does things really kind of on his own at times to play on time when he's not used to playing on time and become a more disciplined player? Is it easier to do than maybe we think, or is it harder to do?
I think it's obviously harder to do. A guy like me was forced at a very young age to play on schedule, to play on time, to win by anticipating and reading the defense and getting the ball out on time. A guy like Caleb hasn't had to play like that. He's been, the best athlete on the field through college. And so, you get into that mode where I don't see it. Instead of having to try to find the next guy or move on quickly to get to a check down, I'm going to just go and create. And we saw moments of creating last year, but we also saw how, that athleticism doesn't translate the same way against the best football players in the world as it did in college. And so I definitely think it's a transition. I think it's one of the reasons why, some of these guys that are coming from college that spent more time or, majored more in being creative struggle at times in the NFL, especially in the early stages, because they can't do that anymore. But it's the way they've always played. And so now they got to try to, against the best in the world with the fastest speed in the world, they've got to play catch up and learn how to do that, tie their feet to the throws, know exactly where their eyes need to go, be able to eliminate certain parts of the read so they can get to the next guy quickly, because, this game happens so fast because the speed is so fast. And so I definitely think it's a big transition for guys to be able to do that, especially in the drop back game. Again, I look at Ben Johnson. He loves to run play action, longer developing plays, which, again, can help a young quarterback that's not great at seeing and reacting and getting the ball out quickly right off the bat. Okay, let's run some deeper, simpler 2-3 man concepts that can allow him a little bit more time to read it and less complexity of having to see the whole field. And so I think there's ways to be able to, take the steps that you need kind of in the midterm before a guy becomes that great passer that you can do and you can implement to make that transition and that process a little bit easier.